Welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Ascend.io, Astronomer, and Nextla. I'm Stephen Figg, Director of Database Trends and Applications in Unisphere Research. I will be your host for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled The Top Trends in Data Engineering for 2025. Before we begin, I want to explain how you can be a part of this broadcast. There will be a question and answer session. If you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the submit button. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible later. Now, to introduce our speakers for today, we're very excited to have with us Sean Knapp, founder and CEO of Ascend.io, Mark Lamberti, head of customer education at Astronomer, and Saket Sarab, CEO and co-founder of Nextla. So each speaker today is going to give a brief presentation, and then we're going to dive into a group discussion. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the event over to our first speaker today. Welcome to the broadcast, Sean.
Thank you, Stefan. Thanks for having me. All right, so let's hop in. By way of quick introduction, I'm Sean Knapp. I'm the founder and CEO of Ascend.io. I am a recovering CTO. Prior to starting Ascend, and frankly, why I started Ascend was in my last job, I ran a 250-person team of data engineers, of software engineers and data engineers and ML engineers. And really what I started to observe was that our data teams are just subjected to this overwhelming amount of toil. And I wanted to solve that. I found that data engineering wasn't always the most enjoyable experience, and our mission at Ascend is to make data engineering truly delightful. And so we spend a lot of our time and working with customers from healthcare to retail, media to finance across the globe. We really focus on, hey, what are the things that we can do to really help improve the overall productivity and happiness of the data engineering experience. And so just to give everybody a little bit of visibility into what that means and what we do at Ascend, and then I'm going to change gears a bit and talk about a lot of what we see in the industry and the market happening today. But what we do at Ascend is we focus on providing what we call a unified data engineering platform. This is really combining what we consider to be the verbs of data engineering, from ingest to transform, delivery, orchestration, and most importantly, optimization of those data pipelines. But we take a pretty unique spin on it. We think it's not just about how do we pull in those capabilities, but how do we really have an advanced layer of intelligence? And we focus on these three parts, which are unified metadata. How do we build a system that understands not just what's happening, but what is your code doing? What does your code want to do? What's its relationship with data, and ties those together? We pair that with an automation engine that can make pretty unique and advanced optimizations, just as how a database may have a query planner and a query optimizer. We have a pipeline planner and a pipeline optimizer that does some pretty magical things. And then we also combine that in this new exciting modern era with assistants and agents. The fun fact is the same kind of metadata and behaviors and actions that you would want an automation system to take actually works really well for AI agents as well. And so we think of this as really the three legs of a pretty powerful stool that the team can use to reach greater heights as they build really powerful and advanced data pipelines and produce data products. So that's about Ascend. Now, I want to change gears a little bit and talk about what we see in the industry. I'll leave this up for just a quick second in case folks want to scan the QR code. If you miss it, don't worry. We'll follow up with everybody afterwards and make sure that they have access to our Data Aware Pulse survey. What this is, it's an annual survey we run with hundreds and hundreds of data engineers, analytics engineers, architects, executives to hands-on coders. And we run this as an anonymous blind survey, independent of Ascend, really just to get our pulse on what's happening in the industry. How are teams operating? How are they feeling about the last year's worth of work? How are they feeling about the next year's worth of opportunities? And I wanted to share, I think, some of the most key takeaways we see, and then how are we also thinking about it from the Ascend perspective. So first things first, I want to start with the good news that we see. The good news that we see across the industry is that productivity is at an all-time high. We found that over the last 12 months, 83% of people are reporting that their productivity has improved. The introduction of AI tools, better, more automated systems, just general overall improvement in the ecosystem is producing results, and data teams are more productive than ever before, which is fantastic. This does come with um, some more interesting, I'd say, concern across the space. My guess is I'm not telling the audience a whole lot of things that you don't already know, but perhaps some of the data and statistics behind this may help you either advocate for more budget, more tooling, more investment in your team at the same time. And the things that we find a little concerning across the space is as we ask teams just a pretty basic question of what does your work capacity look like today? Do you have capacity for more things? Are you roughly at your capacity? Are you way underwater? What we find is that 95% of teams report being at or over capacity, meaning only 5% of teams, 1 in 20, have any bandwidth to take on new work. And that's kind of concerning, especially in this new AI age where so much of the demand for more data, clean data, high quality data products also falls on data engineering teams. We think that's a little bit concerning, and we really want to help the industry do something better about that. When we translate that to what did that really mean and where some of the leading problems are, one of the things that we found, I think this is two really important stats, are one, 70%, almost three quarters of data engineers report that they're spending half their time on maintenance. When we take the entire cohort of people we've surveyed and equate that to how many hours a week, it equates out to just about 18 hours per week per person spent just on maintaining existing systems, which is pretty concerning. Now, some of the really good news, and I think this is the light at the end of the tunnel that we see, is when we ask people, well, so what are your top priorities for 2025? We were actually surprised. We haven't seen this before in previous years. And this is the fifth year we've done this. We were really surprised to see that 46% of folks reported that their top priority was focused on team productivity. And obviously, teams can select a few different options here if people are trying to add up the numbers. But what we found was really quite remarkable is team productivity is above, head and shoulders above all of the other things that we've classically seen. Team productivity is now drastically more important than privacy, security, scalability, governance, cost optimizations. These are not the kinds of things we have seen in the past, and I think they signal a pretty interesting and important shift in focus for companies in the space. When we take this as a lens, and then we go and look at where some of the most interesting investments are happening, there was another signal that we saw that popped out tremendously well as part of our survey, which was, do you have automation today? And if you don't, are you planning on doing anything about automation in the near future? And what we found was that while only 5% of data teams have what they consider to be automation today, 85% report plans on implementing automation in the next 12 months. And that's pretty exciting. Rarely in my career, which is increasingly long, have I seen this large of a discrepancy across technical teams on such a small percentage of teams have something, but such a large percentage of teams have actual plans on implementing that thing in the next short horizon. So I think this is pretty exciting. Now, sharing a little bit more around how we think about automation at Ascend, and at least providing this as a little bit of a blueprint for what we think can be a pretty impactful future for teams. We think automation isn't just about pulling together the verbs of data engineering, as I previewed earlier. We think about it in these three layers that I mentioned. One is this metadata. how do we collect anything and everything that is related to your data, how it's moving, the code that's operating on it, what it's doing, where it's going. That becomes profoundly important because it becomes the fuel for the second layer, which is automation. How do we get data pipeline optimizers? How do we actually have systems that can intelligently adapt as data comes in, can help optimize it, can help catch errors and issues faster? We think that has a profound impact on team productivity. And then third, as I highlighted, a lot of this same metadata that we collect helps us create this really delightful experience for users by being able to automatically do things like document or analyze the code and understand its relationship to data. We close that semantic gap and can do things that help ramp up new people faster, help make your all-stars even more productive. And it's really this combination of these three that we think are just superpowers for teams. And so wrapping up a little bit here, I know this is a bunch to take in on a pretty short sort of introduction here, but a couple of things that I like to highlight is while building highly automated systems may sound complex, one of the things that we've tried really hard to do at Ascend is make it simple and make it delightful. Just because we're building these incredibly complex data pipelines that are helping to do everything from detect early stage cancer to track risk and detect fraud to all of these other kind of amazing things that are making our world such an incredible place to live. The engineering experience that powers that doesn't have to be painful. It can actually be quite a delightful experience. Quick bit more about Ascend. I think, why we've year after year after year been recognized as such a leading innovator across the industry too, is tied to this. Our relentless focus on engineering experience, delighting the data engineer, and really focused on how do we create a more productive, more delightful data experience is certainly something that we continue to get recognized on. And one of the things that we take a lot of pride on across the industry and from our customers is the excitement that we see from our customers on highlighting the things that used to either be impossible that are now possible, or the things that used to take a long time are now happening so much faster. And those are the things that we certainly take a lot of pride in. And with that, I think I've taken a sufficient amount of time. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. And I believe I am handing it over now to Mark.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Lamerty, Head of Customer Education at Astronomer, and I'm super excited to present you the data engineering trends. We have identified 4 trends that I would like to talk about here. The first one is data operations are moving from analytics to operational use cases. So basically, ELTs and ETLs used to power dashboards, but now they power applications. Also, data engineering teams are looking increasingly like traditional software engineering teams in terms of their processes and guidelines and so on, also the tooling. Then platform teams want standardization, but need to get creative to bridge the skill gap for non-data engineers. Basically, they want their platform to be used by data scientists, data analytics, and so on. But last but not least, modern data teams build data products, and pipelines are a means to that end. Interfaces must be aware of these data products, and this is what I want to focus on for the rest of the presentation. So when you hear pipelines, you automatically think, I do believe that you will think about Airflow, because Airflow is the most popular open source data orchestrator in the data world. Okay, so if you want to orchestrate your data pipelines, most of the time you will use Airflow. And now Astronomer is the driving force behind Apache Airflow. There are many committers and PMC members working at Astronomer that work on Airflow. And if you want to run Airflow at scale, reliably, you should go to Astronomer. Speaking of trends, if you take a look at the trend of Airflow, it has been growing over the last 4 years, and it keeps growing, and it keeps growing very fast. In fact, it is one of the most popular Apache projects today. But if we focus a little bit on Astro, Astro is the unified platform to orchestrate and govern all of your data. So Airflow is great, but it might not be enough. If you want to make sure that you can run Airflow at scale, if you want to make sure that you can run as many tasks as you want, if you want to make sure that your teams have a great developer experience, Astro is the way to go. You will get a lot of additional features with Astro that you won't get with Airflow. For example, if you have more or less tasks to run, you will get more or less resources automatically. You have high availability, a much better way to set your permissions if you have many teams, and so on. So it's really a nice product. But now, if we come back to Airflow, well, something big is coming in March, and this is Airflow 3. So Airflow 3 is one of the most, if not the biggest, release of Airflow. And we can divide the features of Airflow 3 in 3 parts. So the first one is run anywhere in any language. I will come back at that because this is super exciting. But then you have expanded data awareness and GenAI support. What does that mean? It means that not only you will be able to schedule your data pipelines on time, but also on data assets. It is already possible to do that, but with Airflow 3, we're going to take that to the next level. And then Airflow 3 will be very intuitive and easy to use, as you're going to discover a little bit more later in this presentation. But if we look at run anywhere, this is amazing because now you can have Airflow running at one place and your tasks running somewhere else in AWS, Azure, GCP, and so on, wherever you want. And this will be super useful because that improves the security posture. You get flexibility of deployment options. It will be easier to upgrade Airflow and data gravity and compliance and lower cost your Airflow usage. Okay, so this is pretty amazing. But that's not all. Because indeed, not only you will be able to run your tasks anywhere, but in any language. Okay, so imagine that now you have some Java code that you would like to run. At some point with Airflow 3, you will be able to do that. At launch, you will be able to run Golang tasks, but that means more teams will be able to standardize and consolidate workflows on Airflow without having to translate Java code to Python. And this is super amazing. Also, it will be much easier to use Airflow 3 than ever. You will get DAG versioning. So imagine that you want to come back to a previous data pipeline, you will be able to do that very easily. Also, the UI will be completely new. Trust me, I saw the UI, it's pretty amazing. You will be able to monitor your data pipelines at ease. And also, it will be much easier for anybody to get started with Airflow. You will get backfills at scale, which is nice for MLOps, and a stronger security because the tasks are truly isolated in Airflow 3. Okay, so we talked about pipelines. Great, but if they break, if they don't work, I mean, they are not that great anymore. So that's why you need something else, and that's what we talked about, because ultimately your data pipelines will produce data products, and you want to make sure that those data pipelines work as expected. And this is why you need data observability. So why do you need data observability? In fact, let's imagine that you want to make this amazing chocolate cake. But maybe, for some reason, you have quality issues with the cocoa. Or maybe you're not able to get your chocolate bar on time in your supermarket, and so you have SLA issues. Or maybe, even worse, you're not able to get eggs, and in that case, you have dependency issues. So as you can see, you can get many issues along the way, but you want to know when those issues arise so you can fix them. And that's why you need data observability. You can divide data observability in 3 parts. The first one is analytics with the relationships, owners, performance, and so on. Then you have monitoring, quality, freshness, timeliness, SLAs, pretty popular, and then alerting, proactive and reactive alerting. And the goal truly of the data observability is to make sure that you can observe and monitor your data products. But what is a data product? Well, a data product is truly like an abstraction. It encapsulates your data assets, like the cocoa here or the chocolate bar in this example, but also your data pipelines. So ultimately, data products are abstractions that serve the purpose of gaining observability into the health and performance of your data pipelines. Okay, you want to make sure that your data products, you get what you want, and if you have any issues to produce those data products, you will be alerted. And this is why you need something else, and that's what Astro brings. You have Astro Observe. So if you decide to use Astro for running Airflow, you will get those data products. Okay, so as you can see here, you have this central view of performance across all of your data products with visibility into ownership, recent activity, historical performance, and reliability. In that case, I have 5 data products. But if I click on one data product, I will land on that page where I have additional metrics to get a complete understanding of the health of that data product. Okay, so for example, here I can see the SLA, the freshness SLA, and additional metrics that will be useful for me to make sure that I will get the data product that I want. And you can see the different assets on that screenshot. Okay, so again, keep in mind that a data product is composed of many data assets and data workflows. Last but not least, and this is one of my favorite features, proactive alerting. So not only you will get alerted if something bad happens, but even before it happens, you will get alerted too. And that's the idea of pro alerting. You will save a ton of time because you will know in advance that maybe something bad would happen. And so that's why we give you recommendations. Okay, as you can see here, the recommendation is pretty straightforward in that case, but you should create an alert and so on. Okay, so Astro Observe ultimately will save you a lot of time. Keep in mind that, and I'm sure you know that, but you have many data pipelines, many data sets that will go through those pipelines, and ultimately you want to know why they become the way they are at the end. Okay, and that's the idea of observability. You will get the full picture of your data assets, your data products. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that presentation. If you want to know more, please join me. You will be able to try Airflow on Astro. You just need to scan this QR code. That's it for me. And I pass over to Sakit.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Sean. I'm Sakit. I'm delighted to be here among fellow technical engineers and data scientists and practitioners of data. To give a quick background, I'm co-founder and CEO at Nexla. And when I started Nexla about 8 years ago, I was really bringing together the computing experience that I built at NVIDIA as an engineer for 5 years there, and then the data scaling experience that I built in my previous startup in the advertising technology space. And starting Nexla, the vision was largely focused on the data users with the understanding that ultimately a lot of value is created by connecting disparate data systems and applications to serve the end user, whether they're doing analytics or AI or operations. So Nexla is a converged platform that brings together different patterns of integrating data and applications. One of the core insights for us was to be really driven by metadata. So not simply defining the point A to B of working with data, but instead using metadata to really understand data and automate much of how we work with data. Today, we are the highest rated product in data integration within Gartner Peer Insights at 4.9 stars, and serving customers across use cases and across industries at scale. So let me dive a little bit deeper into how Nexla works, so you can think of Nexla as a 4th generation data and workflow integration platform. We all know that the first generation was the ETL generation, driven by the wave of database adoption. The next generation was that of iPaaS tools, driven by adoption of APIs across systems. What came after that was the cloud warehouse-driven adoption of ELT as a technology. And where Nexla sits today and where the world is headed is in a converged space, where different patterns of working with data and applications together is how ultimately businesses solve their problems. looking a little bit deeper into how Nextla plays into this space and works, is basically a story of software powered by abstraction. And abstractions are a powerful concept in software as well as in hardware. So we think of two entities, the data producer and the data consumer. And today there are many types of tools, each serving different patterns of data flow. What Nextla introduced in all of this was a schema-centric abstraction that abstracts different types of sources and the variety that they present into a common entity. We call it an XSet. And the beauty of this is that it's not a new copy of data, but a virtual entity that then also abstracts how data is piped into different target systems. Now, this becomes a very simple way of decoupling the data producer and the data consumer. We had Sean earlier talk about how the data engineers are overworked because there's so much coming to them in terms of use cases. Decoupling the producer and consumer in the form of Nextset, which actually predates and was one of the first implementations of the data product construct, simplifies that. When we connect to systems, each Nextset represents a type of data. For example, it could be product or inventory or customer and so on. And you end up with a collection of these over time, which is discoverable and reusable. In addition to abstracting the data and understanding of data itself, we also abstracted the design of the data pipeline from the execution. What that allows us to do is, depending on the pair of systems, the velocity, the volume of data that's needed, we are able to execute in multiple types of data engines and run this in a cloud agnostic fashion. So today we're a system that is available in every major cloud, something that can also be deployed by customers on their own environment if they want to, and process streaming data, real-time data, and batch data all in, as well as bring your own engine. Okay. The benefit of this is that customers get a lot of flexibility in how they work with data. And this also simplifies the end action where we are able to offer a no-code interface while still allowing developers to have SDK and API-based access. Let me dive a little bit deeper into what makes this really powerful and how this creates a 360 approach to data management. So at the core is insight in Nextla was the rethinking the connector architecture and becoming metadata first, and then wrapping all of those connectors representing different systems into a common entity. So the ability to push data or pull data out of any system is now a simplified common interface. This becomes the foundation of how we work, and this powers integrations of different types, so ETL, ELT, streaming, and so on. These entities also become referenceable and usable in generative AI applications. So now when you want to do retrieval across different systems, vector databases, applications, and files and so on, this becomes a common interface to do retrieval. Exposing connectors as a unified interface also allows us to create agents, because you can give a task like make a payment, and the agent can figure out how to connect to that API and handle all of that abstraction from the LLMs. Finally, the collection of all these Nextsets allows us to offer our customers a private data product marketplace. So specific Nextsets can be promoted to a data product. These are documented entities with schemas, access control, audit logs, and combined with logic in cases and validation rules. So all of those entities become data products that somebody can discover, request access, and in a governed fashion get access to data. The beauty is that you can make your RAG chat call, and as soon as you get access to data, it becomes automatically used within the retrieval framework. So all of these things work very nicely all together, giving a very 360 approach to how we work with data and how we bring automation. This is not just cool technology. It is proven across customers in insurance, in healthcare, in manufacturing, in financial services, in logistics, and so on. And this is also recognized by the leading analysts in form of Cool Vendor, 14 hype cycles that we were referred to last year, being an honorable mention in the Data Integration Magic Quadrant. And all the recognitions are ultimately pointing to not just cool technology, but also scalable, deliverable solution. I'll double click a little bit now into how Nexla enables generative AI applications as well, because I know this is top of mind for everybody. So not only are our integrations helping you to ingest documents and data, it's actually giving a full 360 approach to generative AI. So again, starting with the connector and the next sets, ingestion of unstructured data is well supported in Nexla, as is the ingestion of structured data. Building RAG pipelines is available in the platform, which effectively is, think of a RAG pipeline as an orchestration of real-time workflow from query to the answer. And then finally, building agents to power agentic workflows. Now, all of this is built with Enterprise Foundation. So governance, monitoring, collaboration, operations are all foundational. So not only are you getting access to generative AI and building your co-pilot or assistant, is governed. Nobody gets access to data that they didn't have permissions for. And we are in partnership with NVIDIA to bring GPU acceleration to different aspects of all of this Gen AI pipeline. So this is kind of how it looks like. There's a runtime, which is a retrieval time, where you're able to build a whole workflow from query to retrieval, bring in your own algorithms and the latest and the greatest as far as re-ranking or model orchestration, and get to the answers. And of course, before all of this happens, the ingestion, where ingesting files from different type of systems at scale, we work with different types of parsers, whether our own or available in third parties. And also any data connected to Nexla in your enterprise systems becomes retrievable. So all of this gives a nice complete workflow and system for generative AI. No code, low code platform, and multiple initiatives that we power today. So look us up for all-in-one integrations. How do you industrialize your generative AI? How do you scale your data teams through a combination of automation and collaboration? How do you build data products and run all of this in a multi-cloud environment? So thanks again. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or via email. And if anybody's coming to the Gartner Data Analytics Summit or NVIDIA GTC, definitely come and meet us in person. I'll hand it back over.
Thank you very much, Saket, as well as Sean and Mark, for those fantastic presentations. So everyone's up on our screen. We're doing our Hollywood Squares thing. We're going to dive into it. So first question, and Sean, I'm going to let you lead off. If you had to pick one, what do you think is the top challenge in data engineering right now?
Well, it's probably an unfair one because I have a lot of data backing this. At least, coming out of our survey, we see that maintenance of existing systems and more legacy architectures, oftentimes even parts of what was the quote unquote modern data stack, we're still now seeing become a pretty significant challenge for teams, and I think that's what's really slowing teams down, and why we're seeing such a heavy push in 2025 towards platform consolidation and investments in automation, just to simplify the world, help data teams create some more sanity so they can get more capacity to do more interesting things.
Understood. Mark, do you agree? Hey, Mark, you might be on mute. You know what? We're having trouble hearing Mark.
Here we go.
Yeah, we hear you now.
There we go. Yeah, no, I was saying, yeah, I agree. But also, as a data engineer myself, I would say that, most of the time, data quality is definitely one of the top challenges that data engineers have today. Like data quality observability, because ultimately something that many data engineers struggle with is when something upstream happens, they are not aware of that, and that will impact their data pipelines. And so ultimately their work. And this is very, very common. So I think this is why like observability and data quality at some also because you want to make sure you get what you should get are very challenging today for data engineers.
Understood. That makes sense. Saket, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think definitely agree with both Sean and Mark. But I think about what is the reason behind so much work and the quality challenges. And I always think about the 3 V's. So I think volume and velocity are very solvable problems. It's the variety. So I think it's the variety of data and the variety of systems that you have to work with, which means there are more sources of data, there are more consumers of data, and not just data. I think the application world, so the data flows and the workflows are really converging. When you're running an LLM, application or actions on them are almost like data, if you will, small payloads, real time. So I think the variety is really exploding and will continue to explode. And the challenge for all of us is to really think of more fundamental way of how do you really solve that variety. We took a bet that abstractions are a good way to address that. Partly, a lot of stuff is getting generated, and that's how we have done. It's like generate connectors, generate data products automatically. So I believe that will be the challenge we'll keep fighting against.
Understood. Mo data, mo problems. So, Kat, I'm going to let you lead off this next question since you went last. Changing things up here, what trend in data engineering has you most excited?
So I think that it is the convergence. The convergence is a key trend that is coming to us. It's driven by AI. So the way I think about this is that we're going to bring AI into data engineering, and data engineering will enable AI. And in order to make all of that successful and with agentic applications, we really need to converge and look at how do you work across all of these systems. So think of a business problem you want to solve, and really the LLMs become the reasoning and the intelligence layer. And then you have to connect to all of these pieces to make the solution happen across data systems. And the convergence of technologies where we can connect to anything at any velocity easily will become key.
This is the goal. Mark, what are your thoughts? What has you most excited?
That's a good question. I think that I just feel that more and more data engineering teams will try to make their platform as a service, because ultimately, like today, you have many many tools that only data engineers can use, and it's actually something that I've seen growing. Is like, okay, how do I make sure that my platform can be used by as many people as I can in the company? And I think that this is something that will just keep growing in 2025 for sure. And again, like observability, I truly believe that this is something that will keep growing as well.
Makes sense. Sean, curious for your thoughts. What trend has you most excited?
I think there's two. One is I definitely agree with Mark, where we're seeing what I would call the productization of data engineering platforms, where data engineering, I think, has always been in the sort of early adopter territory where data engineers were building out the first pipelines, creating these really powerful platforms, but we're seeing this huge demand in the market to just make it easier for more people to do more powerful things. In many ways, as we've talked about in the past, DevOps is about enabling more people to do things with software faster and safer. Data ops will be the same thing, right? Which is, how do we productize this experience, enabling more people and democratize the ability to do more things faster and safer with data. So I think that's a really big shift. I think that the second one that we're going to see as a really big trend is, I think we're going to start to see a lot more AI into the data experience itself. We as data teams spend a lot of time talking about creating of all these other really powerful experiences, but at the same time, in powerful experiences with AI, but at the same time, we're pretty early and I'd say late adopters to really adopting some pretty advanced AI capabilities and trying to weave it into our own day-to-day workflows. So I think we're going to start to see a lot more powerful experiences, kind of like a cursor experience that we see in the software realm, maybe all the way even to some Devin or some other kind of capabilities. I'm hoping that we start to see a lot more capabilities there for the actual data engineering developer experience that makes some of our most valuable teammates and resources in companies even more effective and more productive than they are today.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's a great segue to our next question. How are advancements in AI reshaping data engineering? And Mark, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I think honestly, like I think that, and this is something that I can already see, is AI is going to be more like a tool than a replacement of data engineers. That's what I believe. Like I believe truly it's going to help many data engineers to, for example, build their data pipelines in a much faster way. So I would just think that AI is going to be ultimately a tool for engineers to be more productive and focus more on the things that truly matter than on the things that you know, like are not that important, but you have to do every day. So that's what I would say about AI today for data engineering.
Automate some of those routine tasks, that are
Exactly.
as value adding. Makes sense. Sean, you want to comment kind of further? You brought this up, so curious to hear.
Yeah,
Further
sure.
on that.
I mean, I think we're seeing, I think historically we've seen approximately about a 13x year over year improvement in sort of AI capabilities and computational efficiency and so on, which is shocking, right? Like far more accelerated than what we saw with Moore's law. And so I think what we're going to see the ability for AI to pretty radically change how we data engineer itself. I think everybody's kind of chipping around on the edges right now, talking about like, how do we do, voice to SQL query to generate a dashboard, or can I get a Copilot tool to help me with with some of these things, like when I need help writing part of a data pipeline, which I think are amazing. And that's fantastic, and that's where we should all start. But I think the more exciting things that I think are going to come far faster is, well, what if we start to give these systems access to some data and access to my code and the Git history, and as Mark highlights, all this observability is backed by, generally speaking, really rich metadata stores, and so we give them access to that. And what happens then if I can have agents that are running, that are helping me, so that when something goes bump in the middle of the night, I don't get paged at 2 a.m., but instead there's some remediation task or some initial triaging, something that can actually help my job in my life as a data engineer be much easier. I think we're in this really exciting era of like verticalized solutions that are AI powered for data engineers that are really freaking cool.
I think based on that survey you shared, I think you said 70%, time spent on maintenance. A lot of data engineers would definitely love that.
Yep.
Saket, what do you see as the kind of key advancements? With how AI is advancing, what do you see as kind of the key ways that data engineering will be reshaped?
Yeah, I think that it really allows us to get self-service become possible. We are already seeing in our own product that today you can generate connectors using GenAI. You can create transformations of data. You can map diverse data into a common model. You can do a lot of these things with natural language. So what we are doing is we're basically lowering the bar of how technical you need to be to work with data. And with this self-service, I think what also becomes possible is that this inverted pyramid of the data engineer supporting all these users starts to become a little bit easier. I agree with Sean that AI also allows the monitoring to be really much more powerful. The ability of GenAI models to really look at patterns in your data and in your metadata when you're running these pipelines is really good. So being able to detect those issues and trigger them, again, extremely powerful. So I think that, overall, AI is going to be that tool that makes the lives of the data engineer easier, although we'll talk about how actually there's a new set of challenges that are coming to the data engineer. But yeah.
That always seems to be the case. Changes, challenges, and opportunities as well. Saket, I'm going to let you lead off with this next question. There are lots of platforms and tools in the data engineering space that offer a variety of capabilities for professionals navigating this space. What do you view as the big game changers? Because it's a busy market.
Oh, Yeah, definitely very busy and highly innovative market. I would say that let's look at the foundational things that are happening. I think Iceberg is bringing a big change in how some of these systems are architected, decoupling that storage and compute. I think that brings a lot of power back into the hands of the engineering users or the technical people. I would say that metadata is a given. Anything that is not metadata driven is not going to succeed. I think you have to use that metadata with, I would say, AI intelligence to take advantage. Also would say that, previously to what Mark said, data products is a big part of what is coming, that people should be taking advantage of, and in terms of what's on the horizon. So I would say a lot of cool stuff. Ultimately, from my perspective, I think convergence, data and apps are going to just converge together. You are going to query a database and get a lot of data, or you're going to push some information into an API and take an action, and they'll all look converged.
Understood. Mark, what do you view as the big game changers that professionals should take note of?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I would say that, I mean, Iceberg is definitely one. I agree with Sakit. I mean, Iceberg is definitely something that everybody should take a look at. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I truly think that Airflow 3 is gonna be huge, and it's again, like, it's the most popular. I mean, one of the most popular Apache Airflow projects today for orchestrating data pipelines. But ultimately, I would say, especially in this market, which is pretty insane, like when you think about how many platforms and tools there are, it's just crazy. I would say just like pick whatever you think is useful for you, try it, and learn by yourself. Like, do you think it's truly something that you need in your data stack? In that case, add it, but just always think that it's going to be more work ultimately, because the more tools you add, the complexity increases. So.
That is true as well. Sean, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree with both what the other guys are saying. I'd say to try and provide a unique additional perspective, I would say one of the things that we encounter a lot, especially in working with sort of like well-established data engineering teams and data organizations, is really this challenge around legacy and existing systems. And I think one of the biggest challenges we see a lot of these organizations face is really that you're trapped in an existing and old legacy architecture. And we see this a ton because the classic cycle is pretty slow. And I think people probably buy cars at a faster interval than corporations change out their data platforms. They're oftentimes 5, 7, 10-year cycles. And the sort of unfortunate part about that is the rate of change is far faster in the data industry. I mean, if you think back 10 years ago to how you would have architected a platform, we would all be scrambling as fast as humanly possible to get away from that. And so I think one of the game changers, honestly, is going to become what are far more automated migratory tools that help you modernize on new parts of the stack that help you keep up with it. And I think from a team perspective, like that's really important because the bigger your organization, the riskier it is to make those decisions. And frankly, oftentimes by the time you've already made the decision, you're already starting to fall behind. And by the time you've actually deployed that decision, you're definitely behind. And so I think we're going to see some pretty game-changing behavior tied to a lot of the investments in AI, especially tied to the utilization of a lot of the new reasoning models that I think are going to make it really powerful to help people modernize much faster onto this new wave of data platforms that are just game-changing themselves.
That's a fantastic point. It's a big project, it's scary, and there's a lot of companies running some pretty old stuff out there. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Mark, I'm going to let you lead off on our next question. The question is, how is the role of the data engineer evolving? What skills do you think will be most important moving forward? Mark, are you still with us? It looks like we're having connection issues with Mark. So, Saket, I'm going to move over to you, and hopefully we'll get Mark back up here.
Yeah, I think the role of data engineer is going to evolve significantly, in my opinion. So the job of the data engineer was to stitch together the pieces and make things work. With LLMs doing a lot of the reasoning around the problem and the planning of the steps and orchestrating with agents, I think the role of the data engineer sort of zooms out a little bit to say, well, how are these autonomous actions working? Maybe not just 3 or 4, but maybe even 10 plus systems, right? So overseeing that becomes the complication, making sure that the evaluation of those actions is being done properly and things are being delivered to what was expected, because these models will make errors and will have those challenges regardless of advancements. The other part I would say is that documents are becoming data. So to the data engineers here, I would say think of documents also as data. Think of not just data, but also the applications, because APIs and apps will become part of the whole system. So get native with curl, get native with vector databases and all of that stuff. And then having a data product mindset will help, because ultimately everything will start looking like a data product, and your job becomes like figuring out how all of these entities really work together, because we're all ultimately the means to the end, which is some business problem that is being solved.
Understood. Mark, good to have you back. I was going to start with you. So how is the role of the data engineer evolving, and what skills do you think will be most important moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's
it looks like we're still having issues with Mark, unfortunately. So Sean, I'm going to pass it over to you. Oh, you're back. Okay, fantastic. If you could just restart, we were having trouble hearing you. It looks like he's still having issues. Sean, I'm going to pass it to you. All right, Sean, why don't you go on this question?
Sure. Happy to. So I think the role of the data engineer is changing pretty significantly. I think both Saket and Mark kind of touched on a few of these. I think the inverted pyramid, as Saket was talking about, has highlighted, I think, a forever challenge for data engineers, as we just don't have enough of them. There's oftentimes folks who, what I would consider oftentimes are downstream in many ways, analytics engineers, BI engineers, product teams, finance teams, et cetera, and even ML teams oftentimes that are enabled and equipped by data engineering teams. I think we're going to see over the course of time, and what we really want to facilitate is what we call a shift left. If I think of the data lifecycle, which generally flows through pipelines and DAGs that go left to right, we want this shift left behavior where we equip folks who have a lot more breadth and depth on how that data is being applied, the products they want to produce, moving them further upstream so that they can self-serve and we can get just faster overall velocity. Oftentimes this is equipped with some sort of a data mesh and data ops style strategy to ensure safety and speed of teams. But what I think that means for the data engineers is a stronger focus around architecture and design. In many ways, it's similar to watching a lot of the infrastructure engineers in the software realm who moved and really facilitated a lot more architecture around Kubernetes style infrastructure and facilitated this pretty radical acceleration in productivity for software teams. I think we're going to see, hopefully, data engineers do the same thing and really take this architecture and design kind of role inside of their organizations to help facilitate so much better efficiency across the rest of the teams.
I agree. I think we're going to see a lot more shift left thinking. Mark, it looks like you're back, so maybe third time will be the charm. How do you see the role of the data engineer evolving, and what skills do you think are going to be more important?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry for the connection issues. So I believe that ultimately, data engineers have to be, I would say, very open-minded, because things are going to change and things are already changing very fast, especially with the AI world. I think you need to, instead of thinking of how can I resist those tools. You should actually take them as they are and see how you can use them for you. And I will stick to the fundamentals. Ultimately, like the skills, like the fundamental skills are still the same. Trends are what they are. They change every year. You have like a new trend. So I will stick to the fundamentals and just like, if you see something like that you feel is going to truly help you, then you should definitely learn more about that. But honestly, that would be my advice. Just like, AI is truly a big thing, and learn how to use it. But otherwise, stick to the fundamentals and look at the trends and pick the one you think will still be there in the next few years, which is tough.
Understood. Saket, I'm going to let you lead off on our final question for today. If there's one thing you'd really like our attendees today to walk away keeping in mind, what would it be?
Yeah, I think going into this year and the next, there's no question that AI will seep into every aspect of our professional, maybe even personal lives. But none of this happens without connecting to enterprise data and enterprise applications. So I think the one sort of thing to take away is, as data engineers, how does this happen at scale, and how does this happen in a governed fashion? Those are the problems we will be thinking about.
Okay. Mark, I'm going to let you go next.
Yeah, I think, again, like AI will be a big thing. But I think like, just again, like just stay up to date with the change, because it is challenging, but I would say see what is coming, learn, like stay curious, very curious. Curiosity is super important in our field, I believe. And that would be my main takeaway. It's just like be open-minded, be curious, learn, try, experiment, and yeah, that's what I would say.
Wise words. Sean, I'm giving you the final word.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll build on top of what Saket and Mark said, which is it's a really exciting time. The rate of change is accelerating and increasing. Things are happening so fast. Kind of as I mentioned before, why I love seeing data engineers move more into architecture and as Mark was highlighting, get in there, play with things, tinker with things, stay up to speed on the industry because it's changing so fast right now. And I think our industry needs more people who are thinking further out ahead, trying to anticipate a lot of the changes we have, because so many of the technologies that we know are comfortable with today are going to change radically, or they're going to become outdated. And we're going to see a lot of premium being put on those teams that can move faster, be more agile, and are really thinking into this future of what does data engineering look like in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, and can anticipate this accelerated rate of change. I think they're going to be the huge champions inside of their organizations. And I think that's going to be one of the most impactful things we're going to see teams do today.
Understood. I was reading an article about F1 drivers and how they look much farther down the road than your average regular driver. They're going a lot faster, obviously, too, so they have to. But that kind of reminds me of that. Well, we are at the top of the hour. I would like to give a huge thank you to our speakers today. Once again, Sean Knapp, founder and CEO of Ascend.io, Mark Lamberti, head of customer education at Astronomer, and Saket Sarab, CEO and co-founder of Nextla. So if you in attendance would like to review this presentation or send it to a colleague, you can use the same exact URL that you used for today. This will be archived, and you will receive an email notification once the archive is posted. And if you would like a PDF of the deck, you can go to the handout section once the archive is live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon.